This episode contains discussions of suicide and depression. Listen at your own discretion. It is Thursday, the 12th of August, 2024. My name is Pigeon and this is my song of the day. Speaking of artists I haven't talked about through the entire run of this podcast, today we're talking about Radiohead. There's a reason for that, though, because I love Radiohead's music, and I was really excited to talk about so many of their songs. But around the time that the podcast started, I discovered their history with Zionism. Johnny Greenwood's married to a pro-Israeli... she's an Israeli national and is pro-IDF, and they've performed in Israel, and it's just a whole thing that I don't want to get into because that's a whole mess. But, fuck Israel, free Palestine. I wanted to clarify up front that I don't agree with their views there, and it's why I haven't talked about them for so long, because I just felt gross about it. But I do really love their music, and I do really want to talk about this song, so I'm going to do that with the clarification that I do not support their politics just because I'm talking about one of the best albums ever made. Specifically, today we're talking about No Surprises, which is from the album OK Computer, which is, their classic. It's the one that everyone knows, and for good reason. I do think it's their best album, although Kid A is a close second, and I really love Moonshaped Pool, The Bends. They're a great band, musically. Maybe not in terms of other things, but I'm talking about this today because it is autumn week, and for some reason this song is really autumnal to me. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's the kind of melancholic feel to it. I don't know. It also always makes you think of a scene from The Royal Family, which I can never find when I try to look it up. But anyway, I don't think we need any more preamble. I think we just go into it. Let's go ahead and listen to it and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. There you go. No surprises. I enjoyed Radiohead when I heard them when I was younger. I didn't properly get into them until my kind of late teens, early adulthood. I knew OK Computer fine enough because, again, my sister had it and I listened to the CD. But my friend extolled the virtues of Kid A to me. And seeing as I already knew the national anthem because Jack Conte did a cover of it, I listened to it, really liked it. And that was what got me to finally listen to the rest of them. But, I feel like No Surprises was always one I liked. Maybe because it's relatively soft. So I liked it at a younger age. But it also just I think it just has kind of wide appeal like that. So while it took me a bit longer to get into other things like a Let Down or... Well, actually, now that I say that, the first Radiohead song that I liked was Fitter Happier. So... I did like weird shit when I was a kid, to be fair. If you don't know what Fitter Happier is, that makes no sense to you. And if you know what it is, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, no, but this song I always liked, and I only liked it more as I grew up, and I kind of paid more attention to the lyrics. And yeah, it's just a really interesting song with a really interesting music video. I'll talk about that in a bit, but let's go through the lyrics first. A heart that's full up like a landfill, a job that slowly kills you, bruises that won't heal. You look so tired, unhappy. Bring down the government. They don't speak for us. I'll take a quiet life, a handshake of carbon monoxide, and no alarms and no surprises. No alarms and no surprises. No alarms and no surprises. Silent. Silent. Woof. So, the song seems to be about someone who's disaffected. You could think of it as being kind of fed up with corporate life, just generally depressed. A lot of people have viewed it as being suicidal. And, you get things like a heart that's full up like a landfill. Tom York said that, it was kind of an environmental comment that a landfill is something you fill up with trash that just wastes away and contributes to harming the environment, global warming, that kind of thing. And so it's if your heart is like a landfill, you're putting all these feelings in there to just waste away and not dealing with them properly, A job that slowly kills you. That one's pretty obvious and pretty relatable. Bruises that won't heal. I've always thought you look so tired, unhappy is a really interesting line. It's written with a comma here on Genius. In the music video, it's written with a hyphen. Tired, comma, unhappy implies separate thoughts. Tired hyphen unhappy implies a modifier, you are the tired kind of unhappy, which I think is an interesting thing to think about there. But then pairing it with the next line being bring down the government feels like such a turn, right? The start of it is really sad anyway. But then you look so tired, unhappy feels like a thing of concern, and then bring down the government. Eat the rich, They don't speak for us. I think pairing the bring down the government bit with a job that slowly kills you is what makes it feel like an anti-corporate sort of song. Like, I can imagine it makes me think of, your standard like white collar worker sitting in a office cubicle, Thomas Anderson, you know what I mean? Like, sitting in an office cubicle, just kind of on the phone, doing spreadsheets, not really thinking about anything at all, wasting away there, and the end of it being, I'll take a quiet life, a handshake of carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide, of course, is the silent killer. It's the colorless, tasteless, odorless gas that can kill you in your sleep. And so a handshake of carbon monoxide makes it sound like suicide. You know what I mean? Because a handshake is an agreement. And so it's like he's agreeing with carbon monoxide, right? I'll take a quiet life, a handshake of carbon monoxide. I'm going to just like waste away, poison myself with this gas. And then no alarms and no surprises is a really interesting lyric to me. One would assume that it's referring to there not being a carbon monoxide alarm to interrupt said suicide. But no surprises is what's really interesting about it. But I guess he just doesn't want this to change, right? And then silent. Then this is my final fit, my final belly ache, with no alarms and no surprises. No alarms and no surprises. No alarms and no surprises, please. So this, again, feels like he's saying, like, this is him striking out. This is him being relieved with his death. This is my final belly ache. Like, this is the final sad, sore thing because, it's a poison. It'll kill him, but it's his final one. And then we got a long instrumental section, and I love when it comes back in with such a pretty house and such a pretty garden, and then you get the repetition of no alarms and no surprises with the backing vocals singing "Get Me Out of Here." It really feels like someone being dissatisfied with a standard life. Because like I talked about the corporate life in the first verse, but such a pretty house and such a pretty garden kind of makes me think they have like a beautiful house and a beautiful wife and, was it 3.5 children, 2.5 children? Like the, nuclear family, they have everything that they were told they needed to get, and they're not happy. They're dissatisfied, right? And so the idea that their house is pretty and their garden is pretty is like really nice, but they're kind of commenting on it of like, it feels like a waste. They're like talking about like, this is such a pretty house and such a pretty garden and I won't be here to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because that's not what I needed or wanted. Genius says it's not the gateway to a perfect life, right? And it really just underlines the whole thing. And then in a really sad way, because it's such a beautiful image. And then it's no alarms and no surprises. Get me out of here. Completely just such a depressing song, but such a beautiful song and such a great illustration of the topic. And I love it so. The music video is really interesting. It was directed by Grant G. Or Gee. I assume it's G because it's G-E-E, like the word like G, golly gee. And also he's British, so it probably is. And basically it's just a close-up of Tom York's face in like a fishbowl helmet, and he's singing the song. And you can see from the reflection in the glass that the lines are like coming up on a teleprompter, which is what I was talking about it being hyphenated in the video. You can see it in the teleprompter. And as he sings, the helmet starts to fill up with water until eventually it passes him by and fills up completely, and he just stops singing and holds his breath and stares at the camera, which looks really weird because his face is distorted from the water in the fishbowl, and also he's got like his drooping eyelid. He's really skinny, so it's a very strange image, and he just holds that, and then just before the "Such a Pretty House, Such a Pretty Garden," the water drains and he gasps for air, and then he sings the last bit with like kind of a smirk on his face, and it feels really triumphant when he finally breaks free of the water. It's really cool. It was apparently very difficult to shoot. It took a lot of takes because he just couldn't hold his breath for that long. He had like an escape switch so that if he felt that he couldn't breathe anymore, he could pull a thing and it would release the water, so he could like release himself. And he kept releasing it way too early because he just couldn't do it. And then finally he completed a take, which is why probably it looks so triumphant, because he's like, we finally fucking did it. I don't have to do that again. Yeah. But I think that's a really interesting video for this song because it's this thing that's slowly killing him. Now, he escapes at the end, but like it says on Wikipedia that the director fixated on the lyric, "a job that slowly kills you," and conceived a real-time video that would convey the feeling of murderous seconds. You feel every single second he's holding his breath, you know what I mean? And they sped up the the footage so he wouldn't have to hold his breath for that long. Or rather, they sped up the song so he wouldn't have to hold his breath for that long. But yeah, it's still wild. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this song. Thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Break it down.